Hello and welcome to part 8 on how to create animated light ribbons using Blender. In this part we're going to clone the ribbon and animate our camera so that the ribbons flow off the screen, which will help add a little more variation to their movement. Let's start with the camera. Press N to open the Properties sidebar. Click on the camera to select it, and press 0 on the number pad to look through the camera. Next, we'll keyframe the current position of our camera so that it always starts at this location. So hover your mouse over the location values and press I. From here, we're going to have the camera slide downward by 3 times the camera's height over the course of 540 frames. Then it will stop and move back up to the current location during the next 540 frames. So set the current frame to be 540. Update the camera's Z location to be -12. Hover your mouse over the location values and press I. Then we'll advance the timeline to frame 1080. Set the Z location back to 0 and press I again. We are going to have the camera oscillate down and back up a total of 4 times. So advance the timeline to frame 1620, set the Z location to -12, press I, advance the timeline to frame 2160, set the Z location to 0, press I, advance the timeline to frame 2700, set the Z location to -12, press I, advance the timeline to frame 3240, set the Z location to 0, press I, advance the timeline to frame 3780, set the Z location to -12, press I, advance the timeline to frame 4320, set the Z location to 0, and press I. Alright, let's reset and run the animation to see how it looks. Notice how the camera is moving downwards. The yellow lines in the timeline are the keyframes that we added. Once we reach the first keyframe at 540 frames, the camera will reverse its direction and head back up. So far so good. Now we just need to clone the ribbon. The first thing I'm going to do is to move the force turbulence out of the way so that we don't accidentally select it. Now we can box select the 3 hooks and ribbon and press Shift D to duplicate them. Press Z to lock it to the Z axis and slide the cloned ribbon up. I also want to rotate it around so that it doesn't move exactly like the original ribbon. So we'll press R to rotate, press Y to lock it to the Y axis, type 180 on the number pad, and press Enter. Then we'll press G to grab it, Z to lock it to the Z axis, and move it back up. Alright, now we have 2 ribbons. Now we want the ribbons to be evenly spaced in the camera view. The top ribbon should be centered in the top half of the view, and the bottom ribbon should be centered in the bottom half. Let's select ribbon 000 and shift select its 3 hooks in the tree on the right. Press G, then Z, and line the ribbon up in the bottom half of the view. Then select ribbon 001 and shift select its 3 hooks. Press G, then Z, and line the ribbon up on the top half of the view. Now let's clone some more ribbons. Box select both ribbons and their hooks. Press 0 to switch back to the camera view. Press Shift D to duplicate the selection. Press Z and slide the new ribbons down. To make this a little easier, let's advance the timeline to 540 frames. Press G, then Z, and bring the new ribbons down so they are pretty close to centered. Press Shift D to clone the ribbons once more. Press Z to lock it to the Z axis, and slide the new ribbons up so that they are at the halfway point. We'll back up the timeline to get a better view. Press G, then Z, and line it up a little better. There we go. Let's rotate this set of ribbons 180 degrees around the Z axis. Press R to rotate, then Z, then type 180 on the number pad. Alright, we now have our original ribbon plus 5 additional copies. One more thing we'll need to do is to set the cloth end frames for each new ribbon, because it defaults to 250 frames. Now in Blender, you're supposed to be able to select multiple objects, hold down Alt, click on a value, change it, and have the new value be applied to each object. Unfortunately, this doesn't always work, but we'll give it a try. Let's select ribbons 1 through 5. Hold down Alt, click on End Frame, and enter a value of 4320. And of course it didn't work, so we'll do them one at a time. Okay, we don't need the Properties panel, so press N to close it. Press 0 on the number pad to switch to the camera view. And run the animation to see how it looks. You may have noticed that the yellow bars have disappeared from the timeline. That is because those keyframes were specific to the camera, which we do not have currently selected. It's looking good. Let's pause the animation and press F12 to see a final render. Beautiful. And that's it for part 8 of this tutorial. If you find these videos helpful, please don't forget to like and subscribe. If you have any questions or suggestions, please leave them in the comment section below. In part 9, we're going to set up some basic compositing, which will allow us to tweak the ribbon colors to our liking. And then we'll render the animation to PNGs. See you then.